Hey, 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 we're back again, the Coon Prairie Ramblers.
All two of us.
Yeah.
All two of us.
I'll not make the mistake of saying, and here's KC, because he's there.
But in a big way, like I said in the last segment, he's always going to be with us. So he's permeating the building wherever we're at. You know, he's always with us. But we were talking about the Coon Prairie Ramblers earlier, and we've been doing this for a while now.
It's about 3 years. Coming up to 3 years, or past 3 years?
May of 2015 we started.
67. Okay.
We recorded right here, right where we're at right now.
Now, we did have a little bit of hiatus this past November when KC came down with cancer and had to go off to the hospital. And we hadn't recorded. This is the first we've recorded since November.
October, actually.
October, right. The end of October. Halloween. And we were holding out because we weren't going to record until KC was ready to come back. And,
that's right.
And all indications were he wanted to come back.
And he would have, we thought. But.
And he mentioned it to us. He says, hey, when are we going to get together? And evidently he was doing good at that particular point in December or somewhere around there.
Right.
But it just...
it didn't work out that way.
Didn't work out.
And I talked to him about, I said, Mel and I can come down to your house and we can sit out there under the carport and we can record a program right there. And he thought about it for a second and said he thought his dog would be...
biting us.
He's got this dog that's trying to get out of the house and rip our throats out.
I think that dog hated me.
I know it did.
Murphy Brown.
Murphy Brown. I mean, she sounded like a werewolf. I never saw her, but I didn't want to see her. I'd back up there and she'd be trying to break out and get me.
When she's looking at me through the window, I could read her lips. She said,
read her lips?
I hate you.
Oh, Lord.
I want to eat you.
Oh, Lord. At least you got to see her. I was scared of what I'd see. So.
Yeah.
But the Coon Prairie Ramblers, we go back to May of 2011. I'm trying to think of how that got started. We were talking about the origin of the Brew Crew.
Well, I'll give you my side of the story.
Okay.
I was talking with KC down at the other end of the table. We just having a small conversation at Brew Crew.
Okay.
And he said, "Hey, we ought to get together and do a podcast." And I said, "A podcast?" I said, "That sounds great." And I said, "How do you do a podcast?"
Yeah,
he said, "Well, I figured you knew how to do it since you're on radio." I said, I'm on radio. I don't do podcasts. And I was working at the radio station at the time. This is when Jack Welch was gone to
That's right.
another state.
Hiatus or whatever it was.
So anyway, I said, well, we'll put our heads together, or we'll research it, and I did, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to do it. So then later on, the owner of the radio station, the local radio station, WFLN, Arcadia's only radio station, came to town. He had sold he's in the process of selling it at the time, but he met where I happened to be eating lunch with him at some restaurant. And he said, Mel, he says, you missed, I wasn't on the radio at the time. He says, you missed doing the radio? I said, well, yeah. He says, well, why don't you put something together and we'll put it on a couple times a week, because we need some local programming. And I said, well, so I told him about our, KC mentioned, he and me and Luke, and we get together and do a show, but we was going to do it on a podcast. And George said, well, forget the podcast. He says, just come down to the radio station and record it down there, and we'll put it on for you. So that's
what we did.
Yeah.
I remember that first morning we showed up down there. We said, well, what are we going to call ourselves? So we sat around in the green room, or we were going to call that little room to the side, and talked about it for a while. And we came up with Coon Prairie Ramblers. And
then we needed some names for ourselves, like or handles. Or
that's right. And we kicked her out around.
Yeah. And you decided on Luke, Rebel Without a Clue.
Yep.
KC, and we said, KC, what about you? He said, I'll be KC and the Moonshine Gang.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys dubbed me the Mailman.
Mailman, that's right.
Yeah. So after the fact, after we recorded a couple sessions, KC confided in me. He says, I think we were a little rash in picking names like Coon Prairie Ramblers and KC. And he said we just did that on the spur of the moment.
We did because it was time to start. We had to record that morning, and so we didn't have a lot of time to research or kick much around.
So I said, well, it's too late to rename ourselves.
You're right. That'd be talk about changing horses midstream.
Yeah.
That would not have worked. But Coon Prairie, we've talked about it before, the origin of the Ramblers, and Coon Prairie was an actual place out there on Highway 70 East here in Arcadia, out there where Walmart and all that is. Because when I was growing up, that was all just open prairie, and they had fences out there and cows and stuff like that. And Arcadia didn't start moving out east of town until 1976. And then they created the first mall, shopping center and things like that. And anyway, so we chose Coon Prairie because just to pay homage to that.
Luke, I don't know about you, but I don't know how many times I've had to explain to people what the Coon Prairie was. And I'm not from here.
Oh, so it kind of put you in a position.
And I'm thinking, well, the Coon Prairie out there, you know where Walmart...
That's right, just say Highway 70 West.
That's about as much as I can tell them. Somewhere out there.
That's exactly
It used
right.
to be a real Coon Prairie.
Mm-hmm. Well, we started recording, and I'd never done anything like that before. I'd been interviewed a couple times on the radios, and I was always terrified of the thing, but...
I happened to interview of you and I...
Oh, Lord.
When I was doing Jack Spots.
And you can erase that.
No, I still got it.
That. Oh, Lord. Come back to bite me probably. But
I think you even played the guitar and sang a song.
Oh, Lord. I think I did it with K.O. Keene as well. K.O. was doing my morning show at one time. And also did it with Joe Fink one time. Joe had a program.
I remember that. Yeah.
Exactly. But what I've found, I've grown easy with it when you're sitting around with real friends just talking. It's like you're just shooting the bull down at the coffee shop or under the tree of knowledge or whatever. You're just talking and stuff. We think of a subject and run with it, and that's helped me be able to get used to it.
Yeah.
I couldn't be one of these guys that, like Jack does. Jack talked a whole hour, and he'll read the newspaper, find articles and stuff, and he'll just talk about local stuff. I don't think I could do that by myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I'm glad we had three people, because with three people,
you got a good balance.
Somebody's going to talk, you know.
That's right. You got a good balance there, and sometimes there's always that awkward dead air where you're sitting and looking at each other, and you're looking at the microphone, and nothing's happening. But
well, good thing is we record it, so if there is excessive dead air, I can go in and edit it out.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So sometimes we're sitting there scratching our heads, like, okay, where do we go from here?
And there's nothing like dead air.
Yeah.
You can't have that, but. We envision the show going on. I mean, nobody's ever going to replace Casey, and we've talked about this, and we couldn't bring in a third party to be there permanently because it just would feel like we were trying to replace him, which we don't want to, and we couldn't if we wanted to. So what we're likely going to be doing in the future is just maybe having a different third party come in each week. You know, that would bring in a different flavor because they're coming in, they're a different person, different background, different memories and blah, blah, blah. And it'll be interesting to see who shows up every week.
Yeah. You know, and during the break, you read off a bunch. I had no idea we had that many people in there until you read off all their names. You kept track of them.
Let me do that real quick. We got a little bit here. The ones I remember, and I've forgotten you, and if you're listening, which is not likely, I apologize if I've omitted your name, but our guest stars, as I can recall, were Royce Mott, also known as the Rooster, Susie Coker. I'm not sure if she was city councilwoman or mayor at the time. But she came in.
I'm not sure. I mean, she may have been mayor or city council.
Yeah, we've had people come in when somebody was missing.
Yeah.
At different times. So we had Royce, we had Susie Coker, we had a Dangerous Dave Knuckles. He did it more than once. We had the dynamic duo, Robin Gunson and Kim Winiger. If you're listening, big shout out to y'all. We miss you guys. And we had a lot of fun when you were here. Come on back. We had a lot of fun.
Take a vacation.
Robin and Kim. We had Miss Jane Braylinger, who was running the Habitat for Humanity at the time. We had our own Yeti, Yurka Toscano, who works at the radio station, be a guest one time. We had Morgan Cook, and we had Jill Warfield. She was down visiting from Kane, Kentucky. And we had Miss Lori Coker, who for a while was selling ads for the newspaper.
Yeah.
So we've had quite a few guest stars.
But
we'll have some more, and we're going to be thinking about some people. So don't be surprised if we come knocking on your door and want to know if you want to be on the radio. Well, we're down to about 30 seconds.
All right. Well, we'll be back with one more segment.
One more for the road.